8 men beat Big Meech's driver in broad daylight. No guns, no backup, just fists and disrespect. In Detroit, that's not a warning. It's a death sentence waiting to be delivered. It happens on a Tuesday afternoon. Not in the shadows, not in some back alley where scores get settled and bodies disappear. It happens in broad daylight, outside a corner store on 7 Mile, where everyone can see. Big Meech's driver, a man named Curtis, pulls up in a black Escalade, clean, tinted. The kind of vehicle that tells you exactly who it belongs to before you even see the plates. He's not there for business. He's picking up something small, cigarettes, maybe a drink. The kind of errand that takes 2 minutes. He doesn't make it back to the truck. 8 men step out from between parked cars. They don't announce themselves. They don't ask questions. They just move. Curtis sees them coming. He's not stupid. He's been around long enough to recognize a setup when it's 10 feet away and closing fast. But 8 is too many. And they don't give him time to think. The first punch drops him to one knee. The second knocks the keys out of his hand. After that, it's just fists and boots and the sound of a man trying to breathe through broken ribs. No one helps him. There are people on the corner. People in cars. People standing outside the store watching through the glass. No one moves. Because this isn't random. You don't jump someone driving a BMF vehicle by accident. You don't put 8 men on one target unless you're trying to send a message, and everyone on that corner knows it. Curtis takes the beating for maybe 90 seconds. It feels longer. When they finally stop, he's on the pavement, blood coming from his mouth, one eye already swelling shut. The 8 men don't run. They walk, slowly, like they own the block, like there won't be consequences. One of them spits near Curtis's head. Tell Meech we ain't scared. Then, they're gone. Curtis lies there for another 30 seconds before someone finally helps him up. By then, his phone is ringing. By then, the word is already spreading. By then, Big Meech already knows. In Detroit, everyone understands the rules. You don't touch a man's money. You don't touch his family. And you definitely don't touch someone under his protection. BMF wasn't just a crew. It was a structure. Top to bottom, corner to penthouse, everyone had a role. And everyone knew that if you came at one, you came at all. Curtis wasn't flashy. He wasn't a lieutenant or an enforcer. He drove. That was his job. He moved people and product quietly, efficiently, without drawing attention. But he wore the BMF chain. He drove BMF vehicles. And when you worked for Big Meech, that meant something. It meant you were untouchable. Until today. Curtis makes it to the hospital by 3 p.m. Cracked ribs, broken nose, contusions across his back and shoulders. The doctors ask what happened. He doesn't answer. By 3:30, his phone rings again. It's not Meech. It's Southwest T. Meech's younger brother, the enforcer. The one who handles situations like this. You good? Curtis's voice comes out rough. I'm breathing. Who was it? Curtis gives names. Not all 8, he didn't recognize everyone. But enough. Faces he's seen before. Guys who run with a small crew out of the West Side. Hustlers trying to make noise. Trying to prove something. Trying to move up by tearing someone else down. Southwest T doesn't say anything for a long time. When he finally speaks, his voice is calm. Too calm. Don't worry about it. Then he hangs up. Within an hour, the entire city knows. Not because anyone posts it online. Not because it makes the news, but because Detroit is a small world when you're in the game. And information moves faster than money. Big Meech's driver got jumped. 8 on 1. Disrespected in broad daylight. And now everyone's waiting to see what happens next. Because in this life, you don't let disrespect slide. You can't. The moment you do, you're done. The moment people think they can touch you without consequences, the whole thing falls apart. But Meech doesn't move. Not yet. No calls go out. No cars roll through the West Side. No one shows up at the homes of the 8 men who did it. There's just silence. And in Detroit, that silence is the loudest sound in the world. Curtis sits in his hospital bed that night, staring at the ceiling. His phone keeps buzzing, people checking in, people asking if he's all right, people wanting to know what Meech is going to do. He doesn't answer any of them, because he already knows. Big Meech doesn't react. He responds. And when he does, it won't be loud. It won't be messy. It won't even look like revenge. It'll just be inevitable. Curtis closes his eyes and waits. The city waits with him. 24 hours. That's all it takes. Big Meech doesn't make the call himself. He doesn't have to. By the time Curtis is in the hospital, the information is already on Meech's desk. Names, faces, addresses, who was there, who threw the first punch, who said what. In BMF, intelligence moves faster than emotion. Meech sits in a leather chair in a penthouse suite downtown, looking out over the Detroit skyline. The city glows beneath him, lights stretching in every direction, streets humming with life, with money, with risk. Someone stands behind him, waiting, ready for orders. Meech doesn't turn around. "Let it breathe," he says. That's all. No names, no instructions, no timeline. Just 2 words. The man behind him nods and leaves. The door closes softly. Meech stays in the chair, silent, still, watching the city, like a man who already knows how this ends. Silence is a weapon most people don't understand. They think power is loud. They think it's guns and threats and bodies in the street. They think you prove yourself by reacting fast, by hitting back harder, by making sure everyone knows you're dangerous. But that's not power. That's desperation. Real power is patience. Real power is knowing you don't have to do anything because the city will do it for you. By Wednesday morning, BMF soldiers are waiting for orders that don't come. They check their phones. They watch the news. They drive past the West Side corners where the 8 men usually post up, expecting to see something: movement, retaliation, blood. Nothing. No calls from Meech. No calls from Southwest T. No green light. Just silence. And that's when the nerves start to kick in. Because in this world, silence from the top means one of 2 things. Either you're about to get hit so hard you won't see it coming, or you've already been written off as irrelevant. Either way, it's not good. On the West Side, the 8 men are still celebrating. They're in a club Wednesday night, bottles on the table, music pounding, girls dancing around them like they just won something. In their minds, they did. They jumped Big Meech's driver and walked away clean. No retaliation, no consequences, no BMF soldiers rolling through their block with guns drawn. To them, that means they won. That means BMF is soft. That means the legend is just a story, and stories don't break bones. One of them, a guy named Dre, raises his bottle and grins. "Told y'all, Meech ain't 'bout it. Man's all image." The others laugh. They drink. They talk louder than they should, in a club full of people who know exactly who they are and what they did. And every word they say gets back to someone. Because in Detroit, walls have ears, and everyone's connected to someone. By Thursday morning, the mood shifts. Dre wakes up to 12 missed calls. Not from friends. From people checking on him. People asking if he's all right. People telling him to lay low. He doesn't understand why. Nothing happened. No one came. BMF didn't do anything. But when he steps outside, the block feels different. Quiet. Guys who usually post up on the corner aren't there. The store owner who always greets him doesn't make eye contact. A car slows down as it passes, just watching, and Dre feels his chest tighten for reasons he can't explain. He calls one of the other 7. No answer. He calls another, straight to voicemail. He tries a third, and this time, someone picks up. "Yo, where y'all at?" The voice on the other end is shaky, nervous. "Man, I'm leaving. I'm going to Cincinnati. My cousin got a spot." "Leaving? For what? You don't feel it?" Dre pauses. "Feel what?" "They ain't coming, bro. That's the problem. They ain't gotta come." The line goes dead. Meech still hasn't moved. He's in a different location now, a house in the suburbs. Quiet, private, the kind of place where no one expects him to be. Southwest T sits across from him, arms folded, watching his brother with the kind of respect that doesn't need words. They're scrambling, T says. 3 of them already left the city. The others are trying to figure out what's coming. Meech nods slowly. He doesn't smile, doesn't gloat. He just listens. You want me to push? T asks. Meech shakes his head. No. Let them think. They gonna run. Good. T leans back, understanding, because this is how Meech operates. He doesn't chase. He doesn't need to prove anything. He just applies pressure, invisible, psychological, suffocating. You don't hunt a man. You make him hunt himself. By Thursday afternoon, 2 more of the 8 are gone. One gets on a Greyhound to Atlanta. Another moves in with family in Flint, swearing he's done with Detroit for good. The ones who stay start hearing things, rumors, whispers. That BMF knows where they sleep. That Southwest T has a list. That Meech is just waiting for the right moment. None of it's confirmed. None of it's a direct threat. But that's what makes it terrifying. Because when you don't know what's coming, every shadow looks like death. Curtis gets released from the hospital Thursday evening. His ribs are wrapped. His face is still swollen. But he's alive, and he's walking, and when he steps outside, there's a car waiting for him. Not an Escalade. Something quieter. Something that doesn't draw attention. The driver doesn't say anything. Just hands him a phone. Curtis puts it to his ear. You good? Meech's voice. Calm, steady. Yeah. Take the week off. We got you covered. Curtis exhales, feeling the weight lift just a little. What about them? There's a pause. Not long. Just enough. They're handling themselves. Then the line goes dead. Curtis stares at the phone for a moment, then looks out the window as the car pulls away from the hospital. He doesn't ask any more questions. He already knows how this ends. They thought they were making a statement. 8 men. 1 target. A public beating designed to show the city that BMF wasn't untouchable. That Big Meech was just a name, and names don't protect you when fists start flying. But they didn't understand the game they were playing. They didn't understand structure. The crew wasn't random. They ran together small-time hustlers from the west side, moving weight, but never enough to matter. Neighborhood guys, trying to climb, trying to make noise, in a city where noise gets you noticed or gets you killed. Dre was the loudest. Mid-20s, quick with his mouth, quicker with his hand. He'd been talking about BMF for months, saying they were overrated, saying Meech was all flash and no follow-through. Man's a celebrity now, he'd say in barbershops, on corners, anywhere people would listen. He ain't in the streets no more. He's in clubs. He's on magazine covers. That ain't gangster. That's Hollywood. The others fed off it. They believed him because they wanted to. Because believing BMF was vulnerable made them feel bigger than they were. And when the opportunity came, when they saw Curtis step out of that Escalade alone, no backup, no security, they took it. It felt good in the moment. It felt like power. But power is only real if people recognize it. And in Detroit, no one recognized them. By Friday morning, the crew is fractured. 3 are already gone out of the city, staying with family, lying low in places they think are safe. The 5 who remain are trying to act normal, trying to convince themselves nothing's coming. Dre posts up outside a liquor store on Friday afternoon, same corner he always claims, trying to project confidence he doesn't feel. A car rolls by, slows down, doesn't stop, just watches. Dre's hand moves toward his waistband, but the car keeps going. He exhales, tells himself he's paranoid. But the corner feels wrong. Guys who usually stand with him aren't there. The usual foot traffic people stopping by, checking in, doing business has dried up. It's like the block knows something he doesn't. Another one of the 8, a guy named Pooh, sits in his apartment, curtains drawn, door locked, gun on the table, in front of him. His phone rings. Unknown number. He stares at it, heart pounding, finger hovering over the answer button. It rings 6 times, then stops. 30 seconds later, it rings again. Same number. Pooh doesn't answer. He just watches the screen light up, over and over, until finally it stops. He tells himself it's nothing, just spam, just coincidence. But his hands are shaking. The others are having similar experiences. Cars that follow them for 3 blocks, then turn off. Knocks on the door at 2 a.m. that stop before anyone answers. Phones that ring and ring with no one on the other end. No threats, no voices, no violence, just presence. The kind that makes you feel like you're being watched even when you're alone. One of them, a younger guy named Kevin, breaks first. He shows up at a house on the east side Friday night, somewhere he thinks is neutral, somewhere he thinks he can get advice. The man who answers the door is older, connected, someone who's been in the game long enough to know how things work. Kevin's talking fast, words tumbling out, trying to explain what happened, trying to ask what he should do. The older man listens, doesn't interrupt, doesn't react. When Kevin finally stops talking, the man shakes his head. You touched one of Meech's people, but nothing's happened yet. That's the point. Kevin doesn't understand. So what do I do? The older man looks at him like he's already dead. You leave. Tonight. And you don't come back. That's it? Just run? Running's the best option you got. You stay here, you're gonna find out why. Kevin stares at him, waiting for more, for help, for protection, for something. But the man just closes the door. By Saturday, the crew is down to 3, Dre, Pooh, and one other guy named Malik. The rest either fled or went so deep underground they might as well be gone. The 3 of them meet up in a basement on the west side, somewhere off the grid, somewhere they think BMF doesn't know about. They're supposed to be strategizing, planning their next move, figuring out how to fix this. But all they're really doing is arguing. We should have never touched him, Malik says, pacing, running his hands over his head. I told y'all this was stupid. Man, shut up. Dre snaps. Ain't nothing happening. Y'all acting scared for no reason. Then why everybody leaving? Pooh asks, voice tight. Why your phone blowing up? Why the block empty? Dre doesn't have an answer. Because deep down, he knows. He's just too proud to admit it. The truth is, BMF didn't need to do anything. They didn't need to shoot anybody. Didn't need to send soldiers. Didn't need to make threats. All they had to do was let the city know. And the city did the rest. Because in Detroit, reputation is currency. And Big Meech's reputation wasn't built on violence. It was built on inevitability. You didn't cross him and win. You didn't disrespect his people and walk away. Not because he'd kill you, but because the entire ecosystem would turn on you. Dealers wouldn't sell to you. Clubs wouldn't let you in. Corners you used to own would suddenly belong to someone else. And every day, you'd feel the walls closing in, tighter and tighter, until you couldn't breathe. That's what the 8 men were feeling now. Not violence, not revenge, just pressure, invisible, unrelenting, inescapable. Dre sits in that basement Saturday night, staring at his phone, watching messages pile up from people telling him to leave, to disappear, to get out while he still can. He wants to fight it, wants to prove he's not scared, wants to believe he can outlast this. But when he looks at Pooh and Malik, when he sees the fear in their eyes, the way they flinch every time a car passes outside, he knows they lost. Not because BMF beat them, because BMF didn't have to. It's been less than a day since the beating. In that time, 8 men went from celebrating to scattering, from feeling untouchable to sleeping with guns under their pillows, from making noise to begging for silence. And Big Meech still hasn't said a word. Sunday morning. The city wakes up slow. Dre is the first to notice something's changed. He's been up all night, paranoid, watching the street from behind drawn curtains. When the sun rises, he finally convinces himself to step outside. The block is empty. Not unusual for early morning, but it's a different kind of empty. No dealers, no lookouts, no movement at all. He walks to the corner store, the same one where Curtis got jumped 3 days ago. The owner's inside, restocking shelves. When Dre walks in, the man looks up and his face goes cold. "We're closed." Dre frowns. "You're open." "Door was unlocked. Not for you." The words hang in the air. Heavy. Final. Dre doesn't argue. He just backs out, feeling the weight of what just happened settle in his chest. He's been cut off, not by BMF, by everyone who tries to re-up that same morning. He's been working with the same supplier for 2 years, reliable, consistent, never an issue. He makes the call, same as always, expecting the usual meet. The voice on the other end is different this time. Clipped, distant. "Can't help you." "What you mean?" "I got money right here." "I said I can't help you." "Why not?" There's a pause, long enough that Pooh knows the answer before it comes. "You know why." The line goes dead. Pooh tries 2 other connects. Same result. Same cold rejection. Same invisible wall that's gone up between him and the rest of the city. He's not blacklisted by one person. He's blacklisted by everyone. Malik is smarter, or at least he thinks he is. He doesn't try to do business. He just tries to leave. He packs a bag Sunday afternoon, calls a cousin in Ohio, tells him he's coming to stay for a while. He doesn't explain why, doesn't need to. He gets in his car, pulls out of the driveway, makes it 3 blocks before a police cruiser lights him up. He pulls over, heart hammering, trying to figure out what he did wrong. He wasn't speeding, wasn't swerving, wasn't doing anything. The officer walks up, asks for license and registration. Malik hands them over, hands shaking slightly. The officer looks at the license, looks at Malik, then back at the license. "Step out of the vehicle." "Why?" "What did I step out?" Malik does. The officer searches the car, finds nothing because there's nothing to find. But the search takes 20 minutes, and when it's done, the officer hands back the license without a word and walks away. No ticket, no arrest, no explanation, just a message. "We're watching." Malik gets back in the car, hands gripping the wheel so tight his knuckles turn white. He doesn't make it to Ohio. He turns around and goes home. By Sunday night, all 8 men understand. This isn't about violence. It's about isolation. BMF didn't need to touch them. They just needed to make sure no one else would either. No business, no protection, no allies, no corner to stand on, no supplier to call, no safe place to hide. They'd been erased. Not from life, just from the game. And in Detroit, if you're not in the game, you're nothing. Dre makes one last attempt. He calls someone he thinks is neutral, a mid-level guy who works independently, someone who doesn't answer to BMF or anyone else. The guy picks up. "I need to talk to Meech," Dre says. Silence. "I know I messed up. I need to fix this." More silence. Then, finally, a response. "You think Meech is thinking about you?" Dre doesn't know how to answer that. You jumped his driver. You disrespected his structure. And now you want a meeting? Man, you don't get it. You're not important enough to meet with. You're not important enough to kill. You're just done. The line goes dead. Dre sits there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. He finally understands. Meech didn't need to respond, didn't need to retaliate, didn't need to make an example, because the example was already made. Monday morning, Curtis goes back to work. His ribs are still sore. His face is still bruised. But he shows up at the same spot, same time, driving the same black Escalade. Someone asks if he's all right. "Yeah," he says, "I'm good." No one asks what happened to the 8 men. No one needs to, because by Monday, 3 more of them are gone, moved out of state, staying with family in cities where BMF's reach doesn't extend. The ones who stayed aren't posting up anymore, aren't making noise, aren't even trying to hustle. They're ghosts. Still breathing, but irrelevant. Southwest T sits with Meech Monday night, the 2 of them alone, in the same penthouse where this all started. It's handled, T says. Meech nods. He doesn't ask for details. Doesn't need to. Anyone hurt? Nah. Didn't have to. Meech looks out over the city again, the same way he did 4 days ago when this began. Good. That's all he says. That's all he needs to say. Because this was never about revenge. It was about control. And control doesn't require blood. It just requires understanding. Understanding that when you touch Big Meech's people, the consequences aren't loud. They're not fast. They're not violent. They're just absolute. There's a moment in every street story where you realize the violence wasn't the point. The guns, the threats, the retaliation everyone expected. None of it mattered. Because real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to prove anything. It just exists, quiet and absolute, like gravity. Big Meech understood that better than anyone. By Tuesday, the story is legend. Not because of what happened, because of what didn't. 8 men jumped Big Meech's driver in broad daylight, and within 24 hours, they were gone, not dead, not arrested, just erased from relevance. No shots fired. No bodies found. No news headlines. Just pressure. Invisible. Surgical. Complete. People talk about it in barbershops, on corners, in studios where rappers are recording songs that'll never mention names, but everyone will understand. You hear what happened to them boys? Yeah, they tried Meech. Where they at now? Gone. That's all anyone needs to say. The details don't matter. The specifics don't matter. What matters is the lesson. Curtis drives through the city Tuesday afternoon. Windows down. Music low. People see him. They nod. Some wave. A few approach the car when he stops at a light, asking if he's good, telling him they heard what happened. He doesn't say much. Just nods. Thanks them. But he feels it. The shift. The respect. Not because he fought back. Not because he got revenge. But because Big Meech made it clear. You touch one of ours, you touch all of us. And the city responded. That's the part most people miss. They think BMF's power came from money, from product, from the empire. Meech and Southwest T built across state lines. But money disappears, product runs out, empires fall. What doesn't fall is loyalty. And Meech didn't buy loyalty. He earned it. Every driver, every corner boy, every mid-level lieutenant knew that if they got touched, Meech would respond. Not with chaos, not with recklessness, but with certainty. You didn't have to wonder if he'd protect you. You didn't have to hope he'd have your back. You just knew. The 8 men learned a different lesson. Dre sits in his mother's house in Cincinnati, staring at his phone, scrolling through messages from people back home. He's not blocked, not cut off. People still reach out, but the tone is different. The respect is gone. He's a cautionary tale now, a punchline. The guy who thought he could test Big Meech and found out he couldn't. He thinks about going back, thinks about trying to rebuild, thinks about proving he's not scared. But every time he thinks it, he remembers that feeling. The corners going quiet, the suppliers cutting him off, the city turning its back without a word. And he knows he can't go back. Not because Meech won't let him, because Detroit won't. Hu and Malik are still in the city, but they might as well be ghosts. They don't post up, don't hustle, don't even leave the house unless they have to. They're alive, but they're not living. And that's worse than any beating, worse than any bullet, because they have to wake up every day knowing they lost, knowing they're irrelevant, knowing that the only reason they're still breathing is because Big Meech didn't think they were worth the effort. Wednesday night, Meech sits in a booth at a club downtown. Music pounding, bottles on the table, women dancing, the usual scene. But tonight feels different. People keep coming up, paying respects, telling him they heard what happened, telling him they're loyal, telling him they've got his back. Meech doesn't react. He just nods, shakes hands, keeps his face neutral. But inside, he understands. This wasn't about Curtis. It wasn't even about the 8 men who jumped him. It was about sending a message to everyone else. This is what happens when you test us. Not violence, not chaos, just isolation, just irrelevance. Just the slow, crushing realization that you're on your own. Southwest T leans over, speaks low enough that only Meech can hear. City's talking. They respect it. Meech takes a sip of his drink. They should. You think any of them come back? Meech shakes his head. They won't, and if they do, it won't matter. T nods. He understands. Because that's the real power, not keeping people out, but making sure that even if they come back, they'll never be the same. They'll never have the respect they had, never have the connections, never have the corner. They'll just be reminders, walking lessons for anyone else who thinks about trying. Curtis walks into the club an hour later. The crowd parts slightly as he moves through, not because they're scared of him, but because they know what he represents now. He's not just a driver anymore. He's proof that BMF protects its own. Proof that loyalty runs both ways. Proof that you don't have to be a shooter or a lieutenant to matter. You just have to be part of the family. Meech sees him approach, stands, gives him a handshake that turns into a brief embrace. You good? Meech asks. Curtis nods. Yeah, I'm good. Take the rest of the week. We got you covered. I'm ready to work. Meech looks at him for a moment, then smiles, just slightly. All right, tomorrow. Curtis nods and steps back into the crowd. Meech watches him go, then sits back down. Southwest T leans in again. He's solid, always has been. And that's the point. That's what this whole thing was about. Not revenge, not violence, not proving anything, just showing the world that in BMF, everyone matters. From the top to the bottom, from the penthouse to the driver's seat. You touch one, you touch all. And Detroit will never forget it. 3 months later, the story is still being told. Not on the news, not in police reports, not in any official record, but in the streets where stories matter more than facts. It's immortal. The tale of 8 men who thought they could touch Big Meech's driver and walk away. The tale of how none of them fired a shot, but all of them disappeared anyway. It becomes a parable, a warning, a blueprint. This is how you handle disrespect without becoming reckless. This is how you protect your people without starting a war. This is how you build a legacy that outlasts the money. Curtis is still driving. Same routes, same vehicle, same quiet professionalism that made Meech trust him in the first place. But now, when he pulls up to a corner, people treat him differently. They nod with more respect. They make way when he passes. They remember, not because he's dangerous, but because he's protected. And in Detroit, being protected by Big Meech means more than being feared. One afternoon, Curtis stops at the same corner store where it all happened. The owner sees him coming and unlocks the door before he even reaches it. Curtis! Good to see you, man. Curtis nods. Picks up what he needs. When he goes to pay, the owner waves him off. On the house, Curtis pauses, then puts the money on the counter anyway. I appreciate it, but I pay my way. The owner smiles, takes the money, respects it, because that's the culture Meech built. Not taking, not demanding, just operating with principle, even in the smallest moments. Curtis walks out, gets back in the Escalade, and drives off. The block watches him go, and in that moment, they all remember what happened here. They remember the lesson. Of the 8 men, only 2 ever return to Detroit. They don't come back to hustle. They come back to visit family, to handle business that can't be avoided. They move quietly, keep their heads down. Don't go near the old corners. Don't try to reconnect with the game. One of them, Malik, runs into Curtis at a gas station 6 months later. It's awkward, tense. Neither of them speaks at first. Finally, Malik breaks the silence. I was wrong. For what it's worth. Curtis looks at him. No anger, no hate, just acknowledgement. Yeah, you were. Malik nods. doesn't ask for forgiveness, doesn't try to explain. He just pumps his gas, gets in his car, and leaves. Curtis watches him go, then finishes filling his tank. He doesn't tell Meech about the encounter. Doesn't need to, because it's over. It's been over. The moment those 8 men scattered, the story ended. Everything after that is just epilogue. Big Meech's reputation grows in ways that have nothing to do with violence. People talk about the restraint, the control, the way he handled a situation that most would have turned into a bloodbath. Rappers reference it in songs, never by name, but everyone knows. Hustlers from other cities ask Detroit natives about it, wanting to understand how it worked, how you make someone disappear without touching them. And the answer is always the same. You can't. Not unless you built what Meech built. Because the move only worked because of the foundation. The years of loyalty, the structure, the respect that ran so deep the city itself became an extension of BMF's will. You couldn't replicate it. You couldn't fake it. You had to earn it. Southwest T and Meech sit on a rooftop one night. Months after everything settled, the city stretches out below them, alive and humming, the same way it always has. You ever think about how it could have gone? T asks. Meech takes a sip of his drink. How? If we'd hit him, if we'd made it loud. Meech is quiet for a moment. Then he shakes his head. Then we'd be reacting. We'd be proving something. And the moment you start proving things, you're admitting you had something to prove. T nods slowly. So we let the city do it. We let the city remember who we are. That's different. T smiles. Yeah, it is. They sit in silence for a while, watching the lights flicker below. You think anyone's going to try again? T asks. Meech doesn't hesitate. No, you sound sure. I am. Because now they know. It's not about what we'll do to them. It's about what they'll do to themselves trying to survive after. T laughs quietly. Cold. It's efficient. And that's the truth. That's the legacy. Not the empire. Not the money. Not the cars or the clubs or the fame. The legacy is the lesson, the understanding, the knowledge that Big Meech didn't rule through fear, he ruled through structure, through loyalty, through the kind of respect that makes a city move as one. Years later, when people talk about BMF, they'll talk about the rise, the money, the reach, the fall, but the people who were really there, the ones who lived it, they'll talk about moments like this. The time 8 men tested the structure and learned it was unbreakable. The time Big Meech proved you don't need violence to be powerful. You just need people to understand that crossing you isn't worth it. Not because you'll hurt them, but because everything they've built will crumble. That's the real power. That's the real legacy. Curtis drives through Detroit one last time in this story. The sun setting behind him, the city glowing in the rearview mirror. He's not thinking about the 8 men. Not thinking about the beating or the fallout or any of it. He's just driving, doing his job, trusting that if something happens again, if anyone ever tries him again, the same thing will follow. Not violence, not chaos, just inevitability. Because in Big Meech's Detroit, you didn't need to fear the retaliation. You just needed to know it was coming. Silent, patient, absolute, and that was enough.